Hi, everyone. We're here today to do a special reading with my friend Marlo. Marlo, can you say hello to everyone?
Hello to everyone.
So Marlo has been a client of mine for a couple of years now. It's been what, like 3 years now or something? Quite a while.
2019.
Pardon?
2019.
Since 2019, that's right. It has, it's been 3 years. And so she's actually become a friend of mine as well since then and through all of that. And she's very kindly agreed to allow me to do her transit reading here on video for you. And so for those who don't know, I do these transit readings for those astrology students who know enough about their natal chart that they are ready to then move on to transits and how to find transits and interpret those transits in their own chart. If you can hear my bird screeching at me in the background, I apologize. He hates me, and I think I'm annoying him because I'm talking right now. So as I was saying, so for those who, like I say, are looking to be able to find and interpret transits in their own chart, the way that I read charts is I use Placidus house system. And so I do lunar forecasts. That's what these are. This is a new moon lunar forecast that we're doing today for Marlo, but we're going to do a general reading for everyone to begin with. And so I am going to pull up the first chart. Give me 1 second to find it here. I had it set up, but you know me, I'm never good with any of this techie stuff. So, all right, so we're going to start here with the new moon in Gemini. And so, as I said, I cast the chart using the Placidus house system. I do not use whole sign for those who are interested. And the reason that I don't use whole sign is because I like to get the extra details of, that you can gain with Placidus. And so because of that, because this is a lunar forecast, the first thing that I look for in these forecasts is twofold. I always look to see where is the moon first, and then I look to see where is the ascendant. And in this chart, you'll see that the moon or the new moon is in Gemini. And that is actually in the first house of this chart because our ascendant is at about 12 degrees of Taurus. So that means that we need to find Venus in this chart. And Venus just happens to be in her ruling sign of Taurus, but she's in the 12th house. Now, why is that important? So because Venus is going to be the chart ruler for the new moon, and she's in her ruling sign, but she's in the 12th house, that means she's in the blind spot of the ascendant. So where Taurus has all of this energy here of Pallas Athena, Uranus, the North Node, and Mercury retrograde, all within its sign, we also have the new moon as well in this first house. And so Taurus is so very focused, or those who have Taurus placements, I should say, is so very focused on being able to communicate what it is that they want, what it is that they need, how and why they have this plan for their future, for themselves, for their path, right? With the North Node there really is this sense of, I need to focus on whatever my path is, as well being in the first house with the North Node. It's a need to focus on yourself, right? Your own mental and emotional health and well-being. And I say that because of Pallas Athena and Mercury. So Mercury is retrograde, meaning that he is now moving towards the North Node. So whenever you have a planet that moves retrograde, what happens is that that planet slows down enough in the sky that it looks like it's moving backwards. But in reality, because the planet is moving so slow, it slows the energy down that is being generated or radiated down to us on Earth. And so this gives us an opportunity to go back and rectify situations where there may have been a miscommunication, or maybe we had signed a contract, or we made an agreement with someone, or made a promise to someone at some point in the past. And now we're coming to the realization that maybe that promise that we made isn't as much to our benefit as we thought that it would be. And so now it's time to rectify things, right? As I say, a retrograde is a chance to go back and clarify things, to clear up an issue if there's been a miscommunication. So for this particular new moon, that's where the focus is in Taurus and those people who have Taurus placements, but as well for everyone in general, because this is the general portion of the reading. So for everyone, we're all looking at, well, am I on the right path? Am I headed in the right direction? Especially if it's around things like career, your reputation, service. And I say that because we have Hygeia and the vertex in the 6th house over here. But the reason that I bring your career and reputation up is because we have Pluto in the last couple of degrees of Capricorn. And Pluto has been transiting Capricorn for a couple of years now. And so having Pluto in these last couple of degrees of Capricorn, this is the last bit of time that you have to rectify those miscommunications and those problems, because you're almost at the anaretic degree of Capricorn. So when you get to the anaretic degree of Capricorn, which is 29 degrees, it brings this energy, this sense of, I'm going to hold on for dear life. Like, I don't really want to let go of something, right? You're kind of too late to the party when it's at the anaretic degree. And so right now we're still at 28 degrees, 23 minutes, which means there's still time before we get to 29 degrees when things start to get really difficult, when it gets really hard to rectify and redo and revise whatever this promise or this miscommunication was from the past, right? And that's what a new moon brings in, is an opportunity to bring a new start in whatever this situation is. For each person, it's going to be different depending on where you have Gemini and Taurus in your chart. So, we'll look at that for you specifically, Marlo, in just a minute, as soon as we're done with the rest of the general reading. So the next thing that I want to point out in this particular chart, when I say that Venus is in the 12th house and it's in the blind spot of Taurus. So Venus represents love and money. So this is relationships and financial issues that are sitting in the blind spot of all of this planning that's happening around, your path, your reputation, so on and so forth. And so, this can be a positive thing. It is in the house of fear and nightmares, but it's also the house of fantasy and dreams. And so, you can have the good and the bad in this house. And one thing that I do want to say about this chart in particular is that we have Aries intercepted in the 12th house, which means we also have Libra intercepted in the 6th house. And anytime you have a sign intercepted in a house, what's going to happen is you're not really going to feel the energy of that sign right away. And the reason that this is important when it comes to the 12th house is because Jupiter just moved into Aries in the 12th house. So, Jupiter is the planet of abundance. It's a benevolent, charismatic, happy, fun-loving planet. Now, when you put that in conjunction with Mars, though, Mars can be a little bit aggressive, a little bit angry, and Mars is coming into conjunction with Chiron. So there's some healing that needs to take place in Aries or in this 12th house for those who have Taurus placements, meaning there's some healing that needs to take place around fear, the fear of, putting action into place. Maybe you're not feeling as courageous or as confident about the actions that you're taking, and there needs to be some sort of revision in terms of your plan. Maybe it's just some little thing that you need to tweak in terms of the actions that you're taking, and that needs to be communicated to the people around you because of Mercury being in the 1st house. And so, like I said, with Jupiter just entering Aries and that energy of Aries, Mars, and Chiron being intercepted in the 12th house, meaning that you won't feel it right away, but there is Venus there as well. So there is love to be had. There's abundance to be had, but I think this love and abundance that's to be had is in the form of communication, because Venus is sitting in the Mercury decan of Taurus in the 12th house. So, not really love bombing communication, but it kind of feels like, with Jupiter and Mars in conjunction in Aries, and then coming into conjunction with Chiron, like there is some communication coming in, like, and it might feel like love bombing, right? Or it might be somebody coming in to confess how much they, enjoy your work, or how much you help them, or something like that. You just never know. Like I said, Venus can be attached to both relationships as well as money. So maybe there's money coming in for Taurus. Maybe you're thinking, if you're putting plans in place for a career or some sort of job, right? Or even it can be education that is going to in some way advance your career or advance you on your path, being that the North Node is in Taurus. Maybe you're feeling like you're not making the money that you should, but I feel like this energy of Venus in the 12th house is saying, don't give up just yet, because you're not feeling the energy of Aries, or Jupiter and Mars in Aries. And there is, there's still something to be had. There's something coming in that's in terms of abundance and communication, maybe a new job, even for some people who, like I say, have Taurus placements, or depending on where Taurus sits in your chart, you'll have to look at your own personal chart to know how this is going to affect you. All right. I know I'm talking a lot. One other thing that I wanted to point out about Jupiter and Mars, or Jupiter moving into Aries, is that Jupiter just left Pisces. Mars did as well. And so when you're leaving all of this Pisces, when Jupiter and Mars were in Pisces, Venus as well, this was a lot of creative energy, right? So it's very likely that over the past several weeks that you may have been putting a lot of action or effort towards something creative, right? Or maybe there was a lot of promise, a lot of people coming in and promising things to you, or you made a lot of promises to your friends, because this Neptune is sitting in the 11th house. And if we're looking at transits, this coming from Pisces, so it's coming from the 11th house into the 12th house, right? So this is promises to your community or from your community that are made that are not actually being kept, right? Because I feel like once Mars and Jupiter move into Aries and they come into conjunction with Chiron, that's sort of the awakening of, oh, I may have overextended myself and I may not be able to deliver everything that I promised. And so just be aware of that energy as well. And then let's see. Also be aware of arguments with Jupiter and Mars in conjunction in Aries. Aries they get a bad rep for being angry little signs, right? Like angry little, what are they called? Angry little goats, angry little ram, not a goat. The goat is the Capricorn, angry little rams, right? They like to fight, but it's just that Aries, they are fiery, right? And so when you put Jupiter, a planet that expands and makes things bigger and can even blow things out of proportion, into conjunction with a planet that is known for war, just be very, very careful that if you need to have a conversation with someone, because of Venus in Taurus in the 12th house, and it is centered around healing because of Chiron in Aries, just be very mindful of the words that you're saying and how you're feeling when you're having this conversation, because you don't want to blow things out of proportion. You want to actually heal rather than hurt. You want to clear up any misunderstandings and miscommunications. And that could be where this sort of love bombing with Venus in Taurus in the blind spot aspect that I'm seeing here is coming in. All right. So we also have Mercury square Saturn. So when Mercury is square Saturn, Saturn is up here at 25 degrees of Aquarius in the 11th house. Mercury is at 26 degrees of Taurus in the first house. So this is, communication that you've had with the people around you. This is part of the aspect that I was talking about, where maybe you made promises to your friends, or your friends made promises to you and you just can't keep them. But then we have Mercury trine Pluto at 28 degrees of Capricorn in the 10th house, where, this is your opportunity to come in and say, look, I know I made these promises, And I apologize. I cannot keep every promise that I made. But because I am, I realize that I made this mistake, I'd like to make it up to you by doing X, Y, Z. Or can we please compromise on some sort of solution for this? Can we please revise the contract? Can we please revise, my workload, whatever the case is, because Pluto is in the 10th house. So this is the house of career. And like I say, you're going to want to take this opportunity now before Pluto gets to 29 degrees of Capricorn, because by then it might be a little bit too late. It's just the last degree. It's the last few minutes. It's like, how often do you get a touchdown in the last few seconds of a game, right? So take the opportunity now. If you know that there's something around career or reputation, community, friendship, family, or money in any way. All right, so now we are going to move on to your personal chart, Marlo, and my bird is screeching at me again. All right, so I don't think that we've ever actually talked about your birth chart before. So this one is going to be, I think, new for you. And I don't know how much you actually know about astrology. So I'm going to just try to give a real quick explanation of the points that I think are the most important for this particular transit. And then after... my bird. And then after I am done with that and we're done recording this video for everyone, you and I can talk privately about anything that you have questions about. Okay, so to start off with, you have your sun in Gemini, but you also have your ascendant in Gemini. And that's important because that means that your chart ruler is Mercury, and Mercury happens to be in Gemini for you. You have also Saturn in Gemini. So this means that you have a Gemini stellium. Okay, so this is really, really important because that means that for the most part, you are going to have a concentration of Gemini energy, Gemini traits, Gemini personality. You're going to be very talkative. You're probably also incredibly intelligent, but I think because your Saturn is within 1 degree of your sun, I think there are some aspects of your personality that people may not notice about you right away. Like they may have to actually get to know you or talk to you to really get to see this aspect of your personality, which I think is a very hardworking, very toe the line, traditional kind of person. I think you have that structure in your personality that is underlying it. But like I said, it's hidden because you're also very fun loving. I think you're very talkative. I think you love to learn new things. I think that you, with the sun and Saturn and Mercury in the first house, Mercury is actually in the 12th house. I apologize. That's one quick mistake that I made. You have the sun and Saturn within 1 degree conjunction, and they're conjoined to your ascendant in the first house. So what that tells me is a number of things. Number one, you might be a little bit stuck in your ways. Like it could be when it comes to like personal things, you may be the kind of person that it's either your way or the highway. And I say that because of Saturn in the first house. Like you can be maybe a little bit traditional and strict, but again, because you present right off the bat as very talkative and fun loving, people may not notice that right away. Another interesting thing about this is that you have a night chart and you were actually born 5 minutes before sunrise. So even though technically the sun was coming up above the horizon at the time of your birth, you're still born during the night, which means that your most positive planet in your chart is going to be Venus, but your most difficult planet in your chart is going to be Mars. And you happen to have Venus and Mars in conjunction in Cancer in your second house, which is the house of money. So why is this important? If we look back at the general reading for the new moon in Gemini, we noticed that already with Venus being the chart ruler for that particular chart, putting relationships and money into the forefront, this tells me that for you, more than likely, Venus, this money issue of Venus and Mars being in your second house, money is going to be an issue for you as well. And I say that for a number of reasons. So we have, so in astrology, this part is going to be for those astrology students who are looking at transits, secondary progressions, and things like that. So what I'm looking at here is a chart of the stations that happen in Marlo's chart from the day that she was born. And so this is, when you're looking at the stations, you're looking to see, were you born during any retrogrades? And if so, or were there any retrogrades or planets that stationed retrograde or direct, within so many days after you're born? And that will correlate to that same number of years. So for you, Marlo, you have a number of stations that are important in your chart. The first one for you was going to happen at 12 years old or somewhere around 12 years old. And I'm not actually going to look at charts for each of these because that'll make this video so long, and there's no way that we'll have time for all of that. But I'm just going to highlight each one until we get up to the age of 38 years old, which is where we're going to start talking about it for you. So the first station for you would have been at the age of about 12 years old. That would have been Astrea station. And again, for the astrology students that are watching, not everyone will look at the asteroids when they're looking at stations. Most people will just look at the main planets. I happen to look at the asteroids. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's just how I read. So you can follow me or not with that if you want to. So again, with Astrea, this is an asteroid that has to do with like balance, but also Astrea is also interestingly connected to astrology. So, I don't know if you maybe, or things that are kind of like a cult, I would say, because of its connection to astrology. So I don't know if maybe you got interested in any of this, any kind of spiritual stuff somewhere around the age of 12, but then somewhere around the age of 16, you had another station that happened where, Hygeia station direct. So probably somewhere around the age of 16, you really got into like, your physical appearance, taking care of yourself, things like that. Like you probably really got into like makeup, and keep in mind, anytime we talk about these stations and I bring up particular ages, there's always a pre-shadow and a post-shadow period. So the pre-shadow can happen like a couple of years before, and the post-shadow can be a couple of years after. So if I'm saying something possibly happened around the age of 12, that means it could have happened as early as the age of 10 and as late as the age of 14. So just keep that in mind, a couple years prior to a couple years after. So again, we're talking like age 16, that's when Hygeia stations direct for you. So if Hygeia is retrograde, what that tells me is that maybe you weren't as concerned with like hygiene so much as like makeup, hair, shaving your legs, all that stuff before Hygeia station direct, right? So maybe you were a little bit of a tomboy before this. Is just my own guess. I could be wrong. Then you have another one that happens at the age of 21 where Uranus actually stations direct. So having Uranus station direct at about the age of 21, this means there's going to be a big shakeup that happens in your life, right? So now this could be as early as the age of 19, as late as the age of 23. But again, Uranus is a planet of chaos, right? It can also be like a planet of clarity. Like maybe this is where the chaos that happened like really caused you to have a huge like maturity, right? That just happened out of the blue, like sudden awakening that just opened your eyes to something where you had to grow up really fast, or maybe there was some sort of chaos that happened in your life that felt like a tower moment if you follow tarot cards, right? Where you maybe where things were, the foundation of something was torn down, and maybe things had to be rebuilt in some way. Something unusual happened at that time. And then we have at the age of 38, which is where Venus stations direct for you. Now, this is the one that I want to talk about the most, and I want to actually look at in your natal chart because you were born under a Venus retrograde. And so, being born under a Venus retrograde, so this is my own interpretation of it, and I apologize. Like I tell all of my clients, it's always with love here. Every time I do one of these readings and I'm explaining one of these charts, I do it with love. It's not meant to hurt in any way, and I apologize. My bird is screeching at me again. He hates me. So being born under a Venus retrograde can manifest in a couple of ways. It can manifest as codependency in relationships. It can manifest as codependency in relationships in terms of finances, where, even though you have the creativity and the ability and the stamina to make your own money, maybe you would prefer to be like a stay-at-home mom or something like that, where you are kind of taken care of, right? Where you are the one who's pampered. And so that kind of becomes a little bit of a codependence. And maybe, it wasn't until the age of 38 where this is where you again, having Venus stationed direct after a retrograde, it could have been a couple of years before, it could have been a couple of years after, where maybe there's a little bit of a naivety that was happening around your relationships, especially if you were, a stay-at-home, like a housewife, and your husband was the one who was working and taking care of you, and you didn't work. And then suddenly there's some sort of wake-up call, right? Where either the relationship took a hit and ended, or there was something that happened where you were like, oh my God, things are not the way that I thought that they were. Because I think, up until this stage, you might have been living in a little bit of a bubble, like a love bubble, if that makes sense. And so then there's this shakeup, right? And then suddenly, all of a sudden, now Venus stations direct, and like you're really looking at your relationships, and you're really looking at your finances, and you're really looking at how you make money as well. And I think that's what's carrying over into now. And I say that because now you and I are, we're both like this particular reading that I'm doing for you, this new moon in Gemini, is actually happening one day before your 50th birthday. And as I was saying to you, when I found out what your birthday was, I was so excited because you and we're only like 2 weeks apart, right? So you're going to have your birthday a couple of weeks after I have mine. I get to be the older one in this scenario, but, we're both 50, and you are having another station this year. You're actually having a Chiron station this year. So let's go back and look at your chart. Where is Chiron in your chart? Your Chiron happens to be in Aries. Does that sound familiar at all for the new moon in Gemini general reading? It should, because Chiron right now happens to be sitting at 15 degrees of Aries, and your natal Chiron is at 16 degrees of Aries. And remember what we said about all of that there is some sort of healing that's either around relationships or money or something, where there was a miscommunication or something where you made a promise or something along those lines. And now you've got to speak up, but you have to do it in such a way that it doesn't, like, you can't be angry about it. You don't want to blow things out of proportion. You don't want to cause a fight, right? Because of that Jupiter and Mars conjunction, which is coming into conjunction with your natal your natal Chiron in Aries. And so that's really important for you right now, because you have another station coming up in 4 years. And that particular station that's coming up for you in 4 years is Mercury, where Mercury is going to station retrograde. And remember, at the very beginning of this whole reading, I started talking about Mercury retrograde. And when a planet goes retrograde, it slows down enough in the sky to give you an opportunity to reevaluate, reassess, and then communicate the truth, right? To clear up any miscommunications or misunderstandings that were happening previously. So if all of this is centered for you in particular around love and money, well, actually, let's look at the transit chart just to see how this is hitting you in particular. Let me, sorry, I got to change my notes here. So when we look at the transit chart, we can see, and you can't make this shit up. Like when I started this channel and started doing these videos where I was asking my friends, like, hey, can I do these readings for you? I'll do them for free. The reason that I was doing these, one of the reasons that I asked you if you wanted to do this, is because I wanted to kind of say thank you to all of those clients and friends who've been very supportive of me, all over the past few years that I've been on Facebook and struggling to keep Missy's Essentials going going because I didn't know the techie stuff, right? And so I thought, well, Marlo is definitely one that I wanted to say thank you to, and she's a Gemini, so let's just have her for the new moon in Gemini. And it's so like, the synchronicities of this, you cannot make this shit up, because look at this chart. Look at the way this new moon in Gemini chart is lining up almost exactly to your birth chart, to your solar return. Like all of this energy, the new moon, one day before, actually probably just a few hours before your actual solar return. So, everything that I was saying in that first portion of the reading definitely applies to you. And I know you had a specific question about, am I on the right path? I don't know if I answered that question or not specifically for you here. I do want to point out some really important things for you real quick before we, because I have a feeling some of the questions that you had, you'd probably prefer to do that in private. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then before we actually get to that, let me point out a last few things real quick in this video so that we can stop recording, and then we'll get to those questions, okay? So the first thing that I want to bring up is how your sun is coming into, or excuse me, the transiting sun is at 8 degrees and your natal sun is at 10 degrees of Gemini. So this is for the new moon in Gemini, and I actually cast this chart just before the new moon actually happens, just because I felt like I needed to, for whatever reason, for your chart. And so you're about 2 degrees off, but this puts the moon in conjunction with Mercury and Saturn in your chart. So the moon being in conjunction with Mercury and Saturn is all about how are you feeling right now in terms of the commitments, the lessons, the karma, the traditions, all of that stuff that's so important to you that we talked about in the beginning of the reading. How are you feeling about that right now? And how are you communicating that to the world around you? And I say that because you do have with that puts Taurus in your 12th house. So the North Node is in your 12th house, along with Uranus and Mercury. So the 12th house is the house of your dreams, your nightmares, your fears. It can be a house of ill portent, like, a house of bad omen, but not always. Every planet and every house, every sign has its positive and difficult aspects, right? So this can be where maybe, you are a little bit afraid to speak up for yourself in terms of what you want and what you need. And the only reason that I say that is because Pallas Athena is in conjunction to the ascendant here. And so Pallas Athena, this is an asteroid that talks about like standing up for yourself, fighting for your rights. Standing up for the underdog. Maybe you feel like the underdog in some situation and you really need to stand up for what you want and you need, but you're afraid to do it for whatever reason. You're the only one who knows that. But on the other hand, maybe it's not so much that you're afraid to do it. It's that, you're just coming with Uranus in the 12th house, like you're coming into this realization. It's like Uranus can be like a wake-up call, right? So you're coming into this realization of, oh, I made all of these promises before, and now that the reality is hitting and the actual work is hitting, right? Maybe I can't, like, maybe this is too much for me. Like, maybe I'm not as happy with this as I thought I was. And then another thing that I want to point out, because Mercury is coming into conjunction with your Vulcan. Vulcan in your natal chart is at 2 degrees of Gemini, and Mercury is at 26 degrees of Taurus. That means within a few days after the new moon, which is on May the 30th, the day before your birthday. So within a few days of your birthday, I think you're going to have an opportunity to speak up. And it's going to depend upon like how badly do you want it. And I say that because of the energy of Vulcan. That is literally like Vulcan is always right next to the sun, and Vulcan is the energy and the effort that you put into those things that you want, that you need, whatever, right? Those things that you're passionate about, those things that speak to your soul. And so again, Mercury coming into conjunction with that, you'll have that opportunity, but it's up to you to take it And then one other thing, we do have, this is where Mercury in this chart comes into this square with Saturn, and this is hitting directly, like right in the middle of your 10th house. So, for me, this can be, and it's also coming into conjunction with Astrea in your chart. So remember when I said that Astrea has to do with like balance, and justice, and things playing out fairly, but it's also about astrology and things like that. So having this in the 10th house, this could be something related to your job or work or your reputation. But I think the main issue with that, because Vesta is at 1 degree of Pisces while Saturn is at 25 degrees of Aquarius, I feel like there's like your integrity is kind of being called, like maybe you're worried about your integrity being called into question because of the way that the moon is in conjunction to Mercury in the 12th house with this transit chart, and then that's sitting square to Saturn and Astrea in the 10th house. Like if that's a fear that you have, I don't think you should worry about it, because again, Mercury is sitting trine to Pluto, and that's hitting your 9th house, and that is also coming into conjunction with your natal north node. So you probably over the last few years have already felt this sort of push and this pressure to get on your path, like career-wise anyway. But because your north node happens to sit in your 9th house, and having the north node in Capricorn, this is energy of needing to work towards something, right? You have to leave the south node behind. Your south node is in Cancer, meaning the energy of Cancer is the energy of home and family and security and all of that, yummy, good stuff that you probably had, before the age of 38 when Venus stationed direct, right? Where you were comforted and you were taken care of and you were pampered. Well, now you've mastered that energy. You are very comfortable in that energy, but you got to leave all that stuff behind, because now it's time to follow your bliss, to follow your subconscious, your higher self. What is it that you know is going to make you happy? What are the gifts, skills, and abilities that you have that you can put to use in order to create some sort of career that's going to make you feel fulfilled, where you want to get up every day, where you're excited about getting up and doing whatever it is that you have to do every day because you love it so much, or you're passionate about it. Even if you're tired, you're like, you know what? I am so passionate about whatever XYZ that I'm willing to get up and work towards it anyway. And now, just because I'm saying career doesn't mean that it absolutely has to be career, but because this is the North Node in Capricorn, and Capricorn is kind of the energy of like the CEO of the zodiac. Like this is, the hard worker. This is, you're the competitive, driven, businessman who's going to have multiple businesses, many different things. And being in the 9th house, also, this is someone who's incredibly intelligent, like higher education. This can be in law. This can be in astrology, even because this is the 9th house. This can be psychology because of the subconscious, right? Counseling, any of those things, education, communication, if that's your thing, because this is the 9th house. Travel, foreign languages, I can't even think of all the other different examples. You are going to know personally how that's going to play out for you. But like I said, this is in conjunction within 2 degrees right now, 2 degrees, almost 3 degrees of your north node. So if there's something you need to say to somebody about your path, about what will make you the happiest, now is the time when we have this new moon, while Mercury is already retrograde, and before Pluto hits that anaretic degree of 29 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask if you have any questions that you want to ask on air, or if there's anything you want to clarify while we're still being recorded before I stop the recording.
It was amazing what you said about when I was 19 or 20. Like you totally nailed it. Totally. I don't know, can I tell what happened? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
my grandfather died. I moved out of my parents' house on my own and was staying with my grandmother. And I just came into my own. I was like, oh, I'm independent now, and I'm gonna do whatever I want because they had a very heavy hand with me. And then like right after that happened, he dies like very suddenly, and I was just like, oh my god, like, and it damaged me very badly for several years. And then I finally, came to terms with all that. But that was wow. Like when you said the tower came in, I'm gonna get all emotional. But yeah,
This is
that was really cool.
This is what I love about astrology. People often say, "Oh, I've read my sun sign horoscopes and it doesn't describe me at all." And I say, "Guess what? It's because your sun sign is not your
Yep.
astrology. Your astrology contains all 12 signs." People
Yes.
don't realize we have all of the signs in our personality to some degree or another. It's
Yeah.
kind of like our DNA. You get 50% of your DNA from your mom, 50% from your dad, and that's it. There's always that 50%. There's no changing it. Every person on the face of the earth has all 12 signs of the zodiac in their personality to some degree or another. It just depends on where the planets and asteroids are placed in the chart. That's going to determine what you notice more. That's all it is. So I'm going to go ahead and
I knew
stop
I was Gemini, like through and through.
Yeah, I love that.
You just confirmed it.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. I'm going to thank you again for letting me do this, and we're going to talk in just a second. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye.
Oh, wait, I did the wrong. Hold on. I almost did it the wrong way. I was going to end the whole meeting. Ooh, that could have been bad. Hold on.